I tackled the notes. We had a meeting yesterday at Dorothy's place, and a discussion we had, very interesting, was about our children, how we can bring our children in our faith. At night, as I was waking in the morning, the Lord reminded me of a phrase by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. Martin Luther was the forerunner of the civil rights movement in the US. And those who know the story, he was killed for advocating for equal rights and for abolition of segregation. But he said this, in many of his preachings, he would say this statement. It is quoted over and over and over. And I want to sum up what we did yesterday and say, we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. Jesus wants his church to be bonded, united. And that bonding begins with the family. If the family is not bonded, there is not going to be gluing of that bond in the church, because the fragments are already showing. The cracks, you bring the cracks to the church. So one of the things we need to learn from the church and from the traditional Hebrew life that was instructed by God is that the family, why the Lord brought those children to you, why you belong to that family, why you have that mother, that father, and you have those children, is because God wanted a flavor, a certain flavor, to be brewed in that setup. And that cannot happen anywhere else. And therefore, don't escape your responsibility of rearing your children, of reminding your children, of making sure that continually you keep saying the same thing even when it is tiring them. We want every of our children in the faith. If possible, we want every of our children worshiping with us, because only then they can understand the other part of our faith and be able to live to represent us. The first reading was in the book of Isaiah 22, which is the place we read is a continuation of prophecy against someone called Shebna, who was a palace administrator during King Hezekiah's regime. During a time of great threat, and we remember Hezekiah crying to the Lord when the Assyrians were threatening to attack Jerusalem. You know, instead of this man working to secure the people and the city, he was busy taking opportunity of that situation to benefit himself, and even went on to build an expensive grave for himself. And God rebuked him. And he did declare that he will be fired from that position and be replaced by a faithful servant whose heart was given to doing the will of God. His name was Eliakim. So the Lord announced to Eliakim that above giving you authority and honor, because this is what God gives to his beloved, he would be given the key to the house of David. If your heart is good, God allows you to have the key to the house of David, you know, and also to have the highest position in the royal court. So he was given that mandate that when he opened doors, no one would close them. And if he closes the door, no one would open. That is the authority of the church, if you know the New Testament. So as we come to the church in Philadelphia city, I want to say that Philadelphia was the youngest of all the cities that the 7 churches are. It is the youngest in terms of years. It is the youngest. It was established around 100 BC by a king called Attalus II, with whom, because of his close friendship with his brothers, he named the city Philadelphia, which means brotherly love. Because of that bond he had with his brothers, he called the city Philadelphia. The city still exists, even though its name changed to Al-Shahir, but it's still there. So it tells you that a foundation of anything speaks volume. A foundation of anything will speak volume. So why was the city started? Why did he come up with this idea? The city was built as a deliberate missionary outpost to spread Greek language and culture into the surrounding regions of Lydia and Phrygia. This cultural strategic missionary mindset of the city deeply influenced the identity of the Christian church which is located there, allowing it to become a launch pad of likewise spreading the gospel. You know, the spirit that was operating in the city was a missionary spirit right from its root. And so they wanted to spread Greek culture, and those people who know a bit of our history, I believe those who did or are doing TE, you have come across the regime in which the Greeks were ruling, and one of the things they conquered the world was to bring their influence, the influence to the world that defeated. In fact, even during the Romans' time, most of the Elite people are speaking Greek because of that influence. Because the impact of the mission work that was being done was so strategically laid. If we can do likewise, a mission that is so strategic, we are going to change the world gradually. Philadelphia was a home to a synagogue Jewish community that was very, very hostile to Christians. The church likely started as a group of Jewish Christians who were attending that synagogue. But because of the rift that brewed between the Judaist and the Christian movement, the believers eventually were kicked out as a result of persecution, causing them to establish their own distinct community. Christ praises the Church of Philadelphia for remaining faithful even in the face of trials, despite their limited strength. They had limited strength. You can imagine, they are doing mission, but even in the gospel, in the letter we have read, they are told that they had little knowledge, little power. You know, they had little, but they are utilizing it. So we have no excuse for not using what God has given us. So Jesus does not reproach the Church of Philadelphia, and like I've said before, the Philadelphia and Smyrna are the only churches that are not reproached by Jesus. They are only commended. But Jesus condemned the persecutors. Who are these persecutors? They are the Jewish. Christ promises that if Philadelphia congregants remain faithful to him, he will protect them from that hour of trial. You'll be so faithful to keep them from harm. And not only that, but also make them pillars in the temple of the heavenly God. Make them that pillar. In other words, they will not be moved. Every person who will ever live, they will keep reflecting upon what happens to the believers in the Church of Philadelphia. Even as we read this, even as we go through this sermon, we are beholding the pillar of that Philadelphia faith, the believers who live there. The Church of Philadelphia is always often associated with a period of great missionary enterprise and spiritual revival throughout from the year 1750 all the way to 1950. This period of time is marked by very significant missionary activity and spiritual awakening. This period saw an explosion of global evangelism. There was a new vigor and call for people to step out and preach Christ. And we have great men. We will not mention, there were quite many, quite a number. But the prominent one that stand out are William Carey, David Livingstone, Hudson Taylor, as missionaries who went to the unreached world and took the gospel. So the gospel is no longer going to be contained in parts of Europe. It is going to utmost to every place. We know from back home, those from the east and south, that David Livingstone, who was a Scottish, born in Blantyre in 1813, he was a doctor who had trained himself to become a doctor. And he also trained himself to become a theologian. Then later he is sent by the London Mission Society to Africa. And, you know, when he went to Africa, he, driven by his great zeal, you know, to represent Christ, he was able to eradicate slave trade. You remember this. And also, he knew that so that people can continue to enjoy knowledge of Christ, they needed civilization. So he made routes that would make, you know, traveling easier and explorers also to come and interact with people. I don't want to dwell so much on David Livingstone because I would want to say a little more about James Hudson Taylor. James Hudson Taylor was born also here in England, and he experienced a religious conversion at the age of 17. He felt so clear that God was sending him to go and preach Christ in China. He was a British Protestant missionary who spent 51 years in China. He is best known as the founder of the China Inland Mission. He spent his early years preparing by studying. You can imagine someone studying medicine. He studied Greek, he studied Hebrew, and also a language in China called Mandarin. And he also adapted the culture of the Chinese people. Arriving in China in 1854, Taylor made a controversial but highly effective decision to adapt the tradition of the Chinese people by the way they dress, you know, the way they live, and he was accepted. He believed missionaries should blend into the local culture rather than demanding the Chinese to adopt the Western culture. He relied entirely on prayer for financial support rather than, you know, soliciting for funds. Despite enduring severe hardships, you know, that involved tragedy of his wife dying, several of his children, and, you know, some foreign riots wherever he was preaching, Taylor remained effective and was able to establish 300 mission stations in China. 300 mission stations, and brought about thousands of conversions. It is a period of great activity. The zeal of witness came back. So one was a mission. Then the second thing was what we call the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening was spiritual revival of the church. During the same time, we also have people, some of them are known very well here because England played a very key role in this period in really bringing back the gospel. So we have the story of John and Charles Wesley, and I will not speak much about them. We have the gentleman also from here called George Whitefield. We have Jonathan Edward from America, and we have a gentleman by the name D.L. Moody. And I want to speak about D.L. Moody a bit. I'm picking this because of time, but their stories are very, very interesting. So D.L. Moody was born in 1837, was one of the 19th century most influential evangelists. Born into poverty in Massachusetts, that is the area north of America, he rose from an uneducated shoe salesman to an international religious leader, preaching to millions, shaping modern mass revivalism, and founding what we call today the Moody Bible Institute. So let's go a little with his story. Having been born in 1837, Moody lost his father at the age of 17. And, he was forced at the age of 17 to secure a job in Boston in a business owned by his uncle. They were selling shoes. And his uncle gave him a condition: I will allow you to work with me for only one condition, that you go to church with me. Because in his family, they were not Christians. He had never heard about Christianity before. So he started attending a church. And in 1955, his Sunday school teacher called Edward Kimball visited him at the store and explained the gospel to him. Sunday school teachers, you are very key. Explain the gospel. Don't despise the young people. They can become great people. He explained the gospel. And Moody converted and became a Christian. So later on, after some years and, having grown the business of the uncle, because he was faithful, he moved to Chicago to begin his own business, where he achieved rapid success in shoe business. But he felt so strongly that God was calling him to preach the gospel. So he walked away from his prosperous business to become an unpaid missionary. He launched massive mission Sunday school for the underprivileged, and he opened up a place in a salon that had closed down and converted it into a school. He tirelessly ministers to thousands of Union and Confederate soldiers, and through them, these soldiers, he began a church that was called later Moody Church in Illinois. We know that he went on to preach and to teach, and later he met with a hymn writer. His name is Dr. Stanley, and together they pioneered the use of music to draw massive of people in crusades and crowds revivals, in stadiums. And in 1880, Moody and Stan Kay traveled to Great Britain, where they were attracting large crowds, over 30,000 people. So there was great awakening that, recognized him for his gifting. And when he saw that many of the people lacked theological training, that is how the seed of the Moody Bible College started in Chicago. He began a school to help educate. He didn't even have great skills of a theological school, but he did start anyhow. And because of that effort, we have what we call today Moody Bible Institute. It's a very developed institute of theology. So Jesus sets before Philadelphia an open door. An open door. And may I say that Jesus has set before us an open door. The door is open. Are you going to take advantage of the door? The door is open. This open door for evangelism in Philadelphia was the commitment of the church to take up the charge to make sure that Christ is known to the next person. The next person. It is a church. And this is what they did. God continued to give even us many open doors of opportunity which we need to make use of before the doors shut down. Because doors open, but they will shut down if you don't utilize them. The openings that we talk about when we are talking about mission in this country, the other country. Those doors, if we don't utilize them, we'll be speaking stories. Oh, those times of so and so when we used to. Don't wait to talk about those times. Utilize those opportunities. Whenever God has his church, we must also know this, that Satan also sets up his chapels to oppose what we are doing. So when we are telling people we go to the mission, so the devil also has a gospel. Because the work of the devil is to incarcerate or bring Christians into a prison of no activity. So that's how we came into this culture of coming Sunday, we worship, go home. Then next Sunday, come worship, go home. And I said last Sunday, this is not what Christ died for. He did not die so that we can come here every Sunday and enjoy dancing and go home. No. He came so that he can make us workers like he is. He wants us to be involved somehow. God wants us to be doing something. He wants us to be doing something. So the message to the church in Philadelphia teaches that churches are expected to actively engage in mission despite hardships by recognizing and walking through divine opportunities that come before us. Take advantage of it. Every opportunity, take advantage of it. That opportunity is there for a time. This prophecy highlights that mission success relies on God-given open doors rather than human strength. I've said this before, that every church that does the will of God, that church is alive and it will grow. Every church that is dormant, it will continue dying. Even today, Jesus is still saying to Reading and to the churches that want to be faithful, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. God actively provides opportunities for ministry and for evangelism. The church's responsibility is to step through these open doors as they appear. The primary lesson is that a faithful church actively looks for those doors. Every effective church looks for those doors. They keep asking, where is our open door? So that they can walk through them in obedience and in reliance to God's strength. At night, next page, at night, the Lord told me, I have to show you one open door. After we did the conference that was very good in the month of March, I took the following week to travel to Tana River to see some of the work that we had started. And I found 3 ladies who are doing great work. I had left them under a tree. In fact, that's why I was going there. I had left them teaching these children under a tree. And one pastor from a bypass area, a very simple pastor, went and used his friends to put that wall and a roof, which is so incomplete, so that they could have a shelter. And he exhausted his strength. But I told them, we will pick it from there. And because what remains for the 2 classes to complete is about £1,000. I said, we'll pick it from there. Even if it takes us next year doing mission in Tana River, whatever it takes, but we will do it. But the most need for these children is that most of them are very malnutrized. They are sickly. They are flowing with the mucus because their immunities are very low. And because they only eat one meal a day, and the meal that is available. So I told the ladies, I am going to do a campaign. And by the way, we have started even before I tell you this. It's not, what we are doing is not reliable. I'm asking that we may do something that is sustainable. Make sure that we give them uji, healthy uji, every day. Healthy uji for 1 week is 1,800. Tell me you cannot take advantage of that open door. 1,000, not pounds, Kenya shillings. Is how many pounds? 1,800. It's 10 pounds. It's about 10 pounds. 11 pounds. You can imagine. With 11 pounds, we can give them. And I was telling the pastor, Patrick, that I miss an opportunity we did for another place many years back. I did not take the pictures. As the Lord guided me, we did it. I found children who are like this. And after 6 months, we had given them a nutritious porridge for 6 months, and also someone came and offered them uniforms. So they were very smart. Within 6 months, you could not tell. In fact, when we were taking them pictures, I was fearing using pictures for fundraising because they look that they are very, from very prominent families. They had changed gradually. But we have these pictures so that we know where we have started. And by the time we present those pictures, we shall be comparing with this from where we go. So I leave that charge to you. We have an open door before us. The next clip. We have an open door. These are the middle 3 ladies. Those are the 3 ladies who are doing that work. And that's where they live. That's where they live. It's not that their fathers do not have big mansion houses wherever they come from, but they have chosen, they are graduates from the university. They have chosen that they would want to come here and help those children. Do you want to partner with them? They are not asking for much. Give them uji. That's all they're asking. Uji. One uji for 4 weeks is 10 pounds times 4 is 40. 40 pounds is 44 or 45. Even call it 50. Give them 50 pounds every month. 50 pounds. Is it anything we can do? This is an open door. Let's be obedient. Let's follow what the Lord is saying. And, I visited with 2 other gentlemen. One works in the prison, the huge one. He's a prison missionary. He moves around prisons. And the other one is a gentleman who helps us to do project proposals. And there is a project we were doing somewhere that we've been asking for funds. So thank you so much. I pray that this message will make you